Hi, everybody. Welcome to the St. Pete Soul podcast. I am your host, Brittany Renew, a realtor and local expert, and I am excited to have two other fellow local guides and experts here with me today. I have the co-authors, Meredith Gaunce and Melanie Bowman, authors of Traveling St. Pete, a Girl's Guide, which is a super fun book to help you plan a weekend getaway, or even if you're local, to have like a fun girls' day out. So, Meredith and Melanie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I've always had a passion for writing, so I love to see other people who venture out into that world. And you're brave to put this little project together, get it out there. It's sitting on the shelves. Like how amazing is that? So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So yeah, so let's I would love to just hear a little bit about your background. Whoever wants to go first, just kind of share a little bit about you and where you're from and all those fun things.
Okay, I'll start. So I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and went to school in Georgia for college and grad school, and then moved back to Savannah after law school. And when I did, I realized that there wasn't a girls' guide for Savannah. I would be on my lunch break at the law firm, and I would see sort of these groups of Girl Scouts and their parents walking around, and I found myself putting together this little cheat sheet that I printed out at the office, and I have copies in my purse. So I would just give it to them so that they wouldn't end up like, at Subway or something because they didn't know where to go. So I ended up writing Traveling Savannah Girls Guide in 2010. And then it was reprinted in 2012. And that was a really fun project. And so that's kind of been in the back of my mind since then. Then I moved here shortly after that in 2010. And I have a law firm in Grand Central District where I practice with my husband. And we have a son and lots of dogs.
Wonderful. I love it. The Melanie, what about you?
So I am originally from St. Louis, but I claim native status to Tampa Bay. I've lived here since I was 5 and lived here in St. Pete
Okay.
for
Wow.
15, 16 years. So I've been gushing about St. Pete before it was cool. And when I met Meredith, she was talking about her Savannah book and actually gave me a copy to read. And I was like laughing out loud. It was so cute and so funny. And I thought, we have got to do this for St. Pete. And so it started just, we were kind of informally talking about it and joking about it. And one thing led to another. And we met for coffee one day. And 2 weeks later, we had an outline and we just kind of hit the ground running
Oh,
and
wow.
we got it done. Yeah.
Okay, that's a quick turnaround time. That's super cool.
From that like coffee day to having an actual draft for St. Pete Press to review. I mean, it was maybe 6 months, I would
That's
say. Do you think
awesome.
that's about right, Mel?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt,
So,
this was
but
during COVID, so it felt much longer. It was a really,
Oh,
the
yeah.
timing of the passion project could not have been better. It was really good to get us through COVID.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so it felt much longer. But yeah, I think you're right, Mary. I think it was about 6 months.
Yeah, well, with COVID, absolutely. I mean, that's when, the small business community needed the support the most. So that is very timely that it came out during that time frame. Absolutely.
yep.
So, Meredith, what was going through your head when she posed that idea and you started working on this because you had already done it in Savannah? What was that like for you?
Well, at first, I mean, like I got really excited, and then I kind of had this like, like, you have a job and you have a lot on your plate, and is this really smart? And you get really into things. So, but having Mel as a partner, it was just like I knew immediately that you know she was going to be so instrumental in like driving this forward. And I think we worked really well together just from the outset. We're very similar, very like deadline driven and very reliable. And so if we tell you we will have a draft to you by this day, we will have a draft by this day. And so it just, we just worked so well together that it ended up like any fear I had about it being too big of a project on top of things, it went away pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, having a good partnership is always, super important with business and these type of projects. So that's cool that you found each other. How did you actually meet in the first place?
Well, actually, my husband met Meredith at a birthday party. I have two little
Like a
ones.
kid birthday party.
Kid birthday
a kid birthday party.
So it was one of those weekends that we had to conquer and divide. I think we had like double back-to-back birthday parties. So he took my little one to a birthday party that Meredith and Andy were at. And my husband came home and he's like, I had the best conversation with this really nice couple. I think you would love Meredith. I really think that you guys should meet. And I was like, well, okay. He's never really said that, but okay. So I think a couple weeks later, we met at Hawker's for lunch, all four of us. And Mare walked in the restaurant and gave me a huge hug, like she had known me forever, and we were already best friends. So
I'm not surprised to hear that.
I know. So yeah, I mean, to know Mare is to love Mare. So we instantly became friends, and through this process, we became really, really good friends.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I will be forever grateful to Jonathan just for I think in life we would have found each other, but the timing of us being introduced, like we leaned on each other so much throughout this project, but also just during COVID in general. Mm-hmm. And it was like a blind friend date. It was so cool. And I walked in and like as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, we're meant to be. And we're so once we love someone, we latch on hard. So
that's wonderful. And I feel like women are really good about doing that. We can very quickly just realize how cool one another is and like, all right, we're going to be best friends.
Yep.
Well, I'd love to hear why St. Pete? Like, why do both of you choose to live here and why do you love it so much and to dedicate a whole book about it?
Where do we start?
I know it's a big question, but
it is. Gosh, I mean, I always say like one of my favorite, we live pretty close to the highway, and to get home, I always have to come down the 375 exit ramp. And I have seen just the skyline change and the progression of our city from that viewpoint. And it's my favorite part of every day when I can just see our city. And that feeling of like, oh, that's my city. I love it here. And I'm so lucky to live here. That never gets old. Mm-hmm. And just there is a feeling of specifically between small business owners and just the local maker community that, Mare can really speak to. She's a part of that community. There is a sense of warmth and welcoming and immediate understanding, right? If you live in St. Pete, you just get it. We kind of all just understand, right? And you can't really create that. I haven't found that. And, we really love to travel, and it's so great to experience other places, but there's nothing like St. Pete. I always love coming home. Like this is I just love it here. So
that's beautiful. Well said. I always love coming home. I feel the same way. Meredith, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Mel. There's something about like just a common thread. I mean, whether we disagree on politics or whatever, there's like this commonality amongst St. Petersburg folks that it just like, you get it. Like you generally love the environment and you do what you can, you generally want to better the community. And so there's a lot of willingness to like help where there are needs. If there's like this feeling of working together, and just like this embracing of creativity. And I think part of it for me is I work in a field, I'm a lawyer. And so I don't get to be super creative in my day job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love a contract, but it's not like super, creative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really believe strongly in like exercising that part of your brain and the artistic side and keeping those juices flowing. And I think just being in St. Pete, like naturally does that for people. Like you see the
Yep.
murals and you hear the music and it's just like this vibrant energy that kind of permeates. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what, like, when people visit, they feel that. And like for you to have a traveling guide for those people to help them know, like, okay, these are the local spots that we love. And, I'm sure a lot of them like give back to the community, and you feel like that they're, it's probably why you pick some of them, we're part of that community that you're talking about. I think it's a really valuable resource, what you put together, for sure.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, our goal, really was, we started this project before COVID. And so we were, we want to help the community. We want to spread the word about these organizations or these businesses. And then once COVID hit, we kind of thought like, oh, is this timing right? And then we realized like, oh, it couldn't be more right.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is when we need to get the word out more than ever. And so it just sort of, we almost paused our project because we thought, well, are there going to be brick and mortars? Are they open? And we're like, well, if they're going to have a shot, like, let's help them keep opening, let's get the word out to anybody coming. So,
Yeah. I actually had that similar thought with this podcast, because I also started it in 2020, but I'd had the idea before. So it's like, yes, at that time we needed it the most. And I think that's, because of people like you, like, that's why our small business community thrives, is because the people come together to continue to support it.
Yeah.
It's easy to support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite parts of this project, is still seeing like the owner of one of the spots in the book, their face light up when they see their picture. I think, one of the really special things about this project was that, every small business is struggling with trying to reach a really, really large audience with very little resources. And we asked for nothing from these businesses. In fact, in almost every case, they didn't know they were even going to be in the book. This is stuff like our unbiased opinion that we just genuinely love. And so to be a cheerleader for these small businesses in that kind of way, and what it means to them, right, to be in this book, really has been one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
They've been
absolutely
grateful. So.
Well, I would love to hear just kind of like embarking on an author journey. As I said earlier, like, it's such a brave thing to put yourself out there. I'll start with you, Meredith. Like, what, and you've done it before in Savannah. Like, what is that like to be on that journey and take, like, an idea that you have and then see it sitting on the shelf?
It feels pretty amazing. Like I'm emotional. I like get very passionate about things. And like, I don't know if like I have cried as hard as I did, like happy tears, like the day that we got the first printed copy.
Yeah.
And it was like I just walked around with it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. And it is a really, just like, it's an awesome feeling. It is. And then, to start getting unbiased positive feedback, not like just from friends who like have to say they like it, but like real people who don't know us, and can, for them to say, we really like this and we're going to get it for friends and gifts and bachelorette parties. And so that part really, it felt really good. But yeah, there's a fear component. There's certainly some anxiety. Whenever you put yourself out there, there will always be naysayers, like regardless of how positive your project or whatever. And so you just kind of have to, go in knowing that, and just know that like the good outweighs that stuff so much. So yeah, I would say that's sort of for me how it was.
That's a good point. I mean, because it's like anything in life, when you put yourself out there at that capacity, you're going to get the negative feedback too. And so, yeah, like how have y'all navigated that? Like, what, is it, because that's a whole nother aspect to it that people probably don't even think about.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully there hasn't been much. I guess one of the challenges we have, and I think any person putting together a travel guide would have, is there's naturally going to be change in the businesses. So there are a couple of businesses in the guide that unfortunately are not here anymore. Yeah. They changed ownership, they were sold. Soiree, gosh, I miss your cupcakes. So like, I mean, they're going to be changes. And so, unless you make this your full-time endeavor and you have unlimited resources to constantly update as that changes, you're going to inevitably have some information in there that is not current. And that's just part of the process. And I would say that's probably the most negative feedback we've received is just, Soiree isn't here anymore. Why are they in here? And so, it's kind of, so we will be doing an update, but it's not something that you can update in real time. So we're kind of waiting for, a passage of time so that we can incorporate all changes at one time.
Yeah. Yeah. Disclaimer. We're not liable. As an attorney, you're like, we're not liable for these businesses being open or not.
Oh, and that's in there. It is in there. It actually says we encourage you to call first. As wonderful as we think businesses are, we can't guarantee they're going to be here, that their hours won't change or any of these things. So please call first. Go to their website. So we do encourage anybody to do that, even if they're in the book.
Yeah. So there you go. So Melanie, I'd love to hear like your take on like what this author journey has been like for you.
I cannot, back to the fear thing. I don't know that I would ever have done that. I would have ever actually pulled the trigger on publishing, like without Meredith being like, okay, we're ready. Yeah. Like, this is it. We're going to do this. Because I would have been very happy to have the draft and just keep editing. And so that was a really real thing for me. But, like Mare said, it was just learning and growing. I learned a lot about being patient, right? Because, there were other collaborators with the project, our illustrator and the publisher. Also, you're on collaborating other partners and everybody's timeline isn't the same. So just being patient with the whole process and being patient with ourselves. And that was my biggest learning. Was patience.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you choose St. Pete Press for your publisher?
They seemed to be very flexible and easy to customize their offerings. So it was kind of a la carte. We were able to pick and choose what we really needed at the time. And I mean, for me, they had also recently published Where Had All the Mangroves Gone?, which was a really cool, kind of very beautiful story about the trop. And so they kind of had a lot of credibility in my eyes because of that. And also we met with Amy and just immediately felt very comfortable with her. She's very authentic and knowledgeable and easy to work with. So.
Yeah. I think too, I mean, they're local and they really like working with local authors. And so it was really nice. Like I self-published the Savannah guide because there wasn't really like the equivalent of a St. Pete Press in Savannah. And so I was kind of an unknown. I mean, I was, this young lawyer who wrote this book. And so no one really wanted to work with me. And so, to go into St. Pete Press and to feel so wanted and for them to be so excited about the project, and I think part of their passion was the fact that like they love St. Pete local business and they want to support St. Pete. So we like had this new mission and it was just very, Like there's a lot of synergy between their mission and ours. And so it just kind of was a natural fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Amy as well. I'm trying to get them on the podcast too. Yeah, but she's definitely a wonderful person. So I can see what you're saying. It's like as soon as you meet her, you're like, okay, yep, you're cool. I like you. So like how did you come up with all the businesses to include in the guide? What was that process like?
Well, you should have seen our first list. The book would have been like
an encyclopedia instead of a travel guide.
Yeah, not so pocket size. So yeah, we basically put together a list of like our respective favorites. And then we sat down and like pretty much tried to, say, okay, well, I feel really strongly about this pizza place, or I feel really strongly about this location. And so, some of them are more of my favorites than Mel's. Some are more Mel's favorites than mine, but we agreed on 90% of them, I would say. And so we wanted to have a really manageable list because I feel like sometimes travel guides are so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, I could have just gone on Google and looked up all restaurants and would have given me this. So we really wanted to pare things down and like categorize them, have one Mexican restaurant, one pizza place, one Italian place, so that we could like really kind of touch on all areas, but not have too many options.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We had a criteria that the business had to be open for 2 years.
Okay.
Which was kind of helpful in whittling down that list also. And then we both have had to have both been there and liked it. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And how many in total do you have in the guide?
Approximately 35, including like shops, restaurants, spas. I believe we have 35 illustrations. So somewhere around there.
All right. So hard question. If you had to pick one out of the guide as your top favorite, what would it be?
Oh, mine's easy. Plain Jane. I was there yesterday. Hi, Karen.
Good choice. I like that place. Melanie, what about you?
Oh gosh, it's almost impossible to pick, but probably Il Ritorno.
That's a good choice. That's one of my favorites. It's like such a special place. Like they do, I don't know. They're so creative with their menu.
And it's like only a block away from Plain Jane. So you could easily do both.
That's a cool thing. There are a lot of things that are like walkable between each other. So you can kind of definitely plan like a whole day around it or hop on the Sunrunner. And now we have the Sunrunner, so you can do that.
Yeah. And we really did focus on downtown St. Pete. I would say the only location we have that's like a little bit out of downtown would be Left Bank Bistro. And we just loved it too much not to include. But for the most part, everything is really downtown because we were focusing on like, okay, so if you're, downtown, where can you walk to? Like, you don't really want to be going all over, like, people might want to go to the beach. We had one page on the beaches, but we really wanted to focus on, people who wanted to stay central to downtown and all of the things because there's so much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Left Bank is one of my favorites. And I actually have, you can't see it, but I have a painting, an illustration of their building, but it's the illustrator that you guys had used for your book. And what was her, it's a woman, right? What's her name?
Yeah. Erin Hanna.
Yeah. Just the illustrations in the book are beautiful. Like, how'd you get connected with her?
Oh my gosh. Erin is awesome. So when I was living in Savannah, she was my neighbor and we just randomly met on a whim. And she was a landscape architect. And I think I saw her outside, like drawing a yard and I just was like, I love your style. Like, do you ever illustrate? Because I have this idea of doing a book, but I really think the illustrations would be what make it. And she's like, yeah, that sounds fun. Neither of us had kids yet. So we would go over, since we lived a block apart, we would go over to each other's houses at night after work and stay there, just like drinking wine, and she would draw and I would write, a few hours a night for a couple of months. Yeah. And that's how we met. So then when Melanie and I decided to do this, I was like, well, I'm sure we could find someone local, and I'd love to find someone local, but let's just reach out to Erin because she's so talented, and she was I just think she's very incredible. And she was all in, like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And she flew in for the launch party, which was really cool.
Cool.
With her girlfriend. They had like a girls' weekend and did stuff in the book. They brought the book. It was really cool.
Perfect. Have you had anyone like reach out to you and be like that you didn't know yet and say, hey, I found your book and we came and this was really cool. We did these things.
I've had that feedback come like friend of a friend. Okay. Like I got the book for a friend and they told me it was awesome. They planned their whole weekend. And so I've had that feedback come like secondhand.
Yeah. That's gotta feel really special.
And it's just like, it kind of makes you wonder, like, would they have found these places without us? Like, yeah, they might have stumbled upon it, but like from the outside, some of these places, you can't tell how wonderful they are. Mm-hmm. And so were we the push they needed to be like, oh, they're in here. All right, let's check it out. And then, they realize they're these gems.
Yeah. But that's why people search for like travel guides, on, searching on Google or on Instagram, because it's like you want that local's perspective when you are visiting somewhere. And it's going to definitely add like a layer of credibility to those places because it's been documented like, hey, these places are cool. We can vouch for them.
Yep. And it also like adds like a consistency element. Because you can go to one place and then like, okay, we had a really great experience, or one place and had a really bad experience. And so the fact that if you can get a local's perspective, I feel like you get that like, oh yeah, it's genuinely always good, you know, which kind of gives you more like encouragement about going there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'd love to ask, like, how have you seen the community, rally around you and like support this project?
I find that the people that have supported us really big. They're ordering 40 and 50 books at a time. We can always count on that email about every 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. They're gonna reorder. They have it front and center in their business. So I feel like the supporters have been pretty extreme, and that's really the biggest, just buying the books to sell in big quantities.
Yeah. In the past week, I've been inside both Book and Bottle and Tumblr, and I, just like, probably because, I would notice it anyway, but because we're having this podcast upcoming, I was like, my eye was like keen to, there's the guide. So it's sitting there at both. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Where was it at Tumblr?
I believe it was at the register, if I remember correctly. Okay. Like, it kind of had some like stuff all like together right there. I think I could be wrong about that, but it was in there.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's exciting.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. We were in their top 10 bestsellers, which was like really cool. So we were on the bestsellers table, which was awesome. I think it may have been a local bestsellers. Either way, it felt amazing. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's super cool. Wow. That's like a dream come true right there.
Yeah.
It is. We had no idea that we landed somehow on the, what's it called? It was like the Best of the Bay local authors.
Oh, cool.
We were nominated for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was pretty cool. Like, I was picking up wine at Book and Bottle one day, and someone was buying the guide, like in front of me in line, and it was so cool. And so the woman who was checking her out was like, the author's standing behind you, and I was like, hi, God. Small town here. And she was visiting. She's like, will you sign my book? So I'm like signing my credit card thing, signing her book. It was so cool.
That is so cool. How special is that?
Yeah. That was pretty fun.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, I would love to ask, what would be some advice that you would give to like, fellow authors or even just, anyone that's like aspiring to do like a fun project like this, what would be some advice that you'd give, like lessons that you've learned along the way, any tips like that? Melanie, you want to go first?
Sure. I would, I think I would say choose the people that you collaborate with well, right? Because that really matters. Trust the process. Make sure it's something that you genuinely are really passionate about. The outcome is a lot of times in projects like this, not a money reward or, recognition or anything. It's just, it's got to really just kind of come from your heart and something you're really passionate about. And the payoff is huge, but it's a long journey. It's a long journey.
Yeah. Like having the long-term vision for what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Meredith, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think like we didn't embark on this as like we want to quit our jobs and do this full time or anything. It was kind of a project we wanted and our goal was just to have it kind of fund itself. So and that has worked out for us, which has been wonderful. I would say that one of the harder things about writing and publishing a book is the marketing part of it. So I think, you kind of expect like, oh, you're working with a publisher. Okay, so they will get it out to every place that sells books, but not every bookstore buys through the same platforms. So you are limited in who those publishers will distribute to. And so to get your book in front of anybody else, you have to literally walk it over to them.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like legwork involved. And so if it's something that you really want to disseminate, like large scale, you're definitely going to need to have some marketing help.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's a great point, because I think that is a common misconception about the publishing world. And, you need that grassroots efforts, from you as the author and the people around you that are supporting you to kind of rally and like get the word out for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear what you mentioned, doing some like a revised edition. Is there any other like fun things that you have like in the works or ideas that you've had for, future projects or anything like that you want to share?
I don't think anything we're ready to announce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But
a little teaser.
But the wheels are always the wheels are always spinning between the two of us. So.
Yeah. This conversation it's super, super fun. And it's also unique. I've not had authors on the podcast yet. And it's like and the fact that it's a travel guide, just very much honoring St. Pete and what an amazing city it is. So I love, I feel like there's a lot of synergy with this episode with what St. Pete Soul is about. So I just really appreciate y'all coming on and sharing all of this, as well as, putting your project out there. And it's, it's like I said, it's such a needed thing. And I know everyone I talk to just loves it. So congratulations.
Oh. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'd love to, I do a fun little ending to the podcast. We have some like hot seat questions here for you. So first thing that comes to mind, what's your favorite spot to go to on a night out? Whoever wants to go first.
I'm really loving Baba as a night out. I love the food and I love the atmosphere. I love walking around that area afterwards. So
yeah. And just a little hint, we did get the illustration for Baba last week from Erin, I think, and it's amazing.
Oh, yay. Yeah, their venue is so pretty. Like I'm sure that will look great on the illustration.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is a really hard question for me. I think I would probably say like either Bella Brava or Cassis. Like I really love the energy of Beach Drive at night. And now that the pier is right there, like having dinner, grabbing some ice cream and like walking the pier, like pretty much sounds heavenly to me.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, what's your favorite pizza place?
Cappy's, hands down for me.
Melanie, what about you?
I love Pizza Box.
Me too. That's my favorite. Okay. And Cappy's gets picked a lot on the show. And my husband loves Cappy's, but I'm gluten free and Pizza Box, their gluten free crust with the honey boo boo pizza is just amazing. So
Amazing.
Good to know. I know Melanie gives me the hard sell on Pizza Box all the time. So maybe one day I'll get me Pizza Box.
Yes. All right. So what about on a day off? What's your favorite way to spend a day off?
Well, it definitely involves Woodhouse Day Spa
Mm-hmm.
and just walking around, shopping. It probably would involve riding bikes to cover a lot of ground, right? To maybe do like green bench and lunch in that area and then ride your bike to go shopping. Yeah, that's really hard.
Sounds like a good day.
The favorite.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we would definitely start the day with a cup of coffee and probably like a stroll along the water just to like get going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with all of that. So Mel, let's look at our calendars.
Do that. I'll join. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I just love what you guys are doing. And everyone, if you have not already gotten the guide, you need to buy it because if you're local, you want to still know all these spots so you can plan your fun weekends. And anyone that's looking to visit the area, it's what you need so that you can plan like the perfect weekend. So everyone, go get your book. So tell everybody how they can find you online and where they can buy the book and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's sold locally, quite a few places. I know Plain Jane, Left Bank Bistro, Woodhouse Day Spa, Tumboldo, Book and Bottle are some of the local spots that sell it and pretty consistently have it in stock. You can follow us on social media. We often have a lot of tips and suggestions about stuff to do. So we're Traveling St. Pete on social media. You can also go to travelingstpete.com and order the book there. And there's also some merch that we have, some stickers, shirts, like that kind of stuff. So it's, there's some really fun gifts. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Melanie and Meredith. Appreciate you so much. And everyone, like I said, go get the book, follow them on social media, and maybe you should buy some merch because that sounds super fun too. But thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thanks.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.